Does it follow that since the powers that be have been caught lying about evolution, then they must be lying about the shape of the Earth as well? If death came into the world as a result of sin, what was God's plan beforehand? If he created reproducing life without death, then Earth would soon have become an exponentially growing pile of animals. So how do we fit in this question of and the same for humans? What about overpopulation if humans were never supposed to die?
Well, it'd be a pretty tough world if they all had kids and kids and kids and kids till we ran out of room. Diane, you're our biologist. You take it from there.
Yes, that is actually a reasonable answer, or a reasonable question, rather. The answer is, well, what was the reproduction rate before death came into the world? Because God is in control of that as well. Yes. Now, we do have a question about this on the Ask John Mackay site. But you have to remember, if God is the one who made life, he is in control of reproduction. Now, in terms of human reproduction, the first mother who had a baby on earth made a very interesting statement. She said, with the help of the Lord, I have gotten a man. In other words, I have had a baby with the help of the Lord. So babies are more than biology. And I think we can say the same thing goes for animal reproduction as well. God is in charge of that. So he would know. He made the world. He gave it all the resources. He would know when it was full. And he can encourage reproduction or facilitate reproduction, or he can stop it. And there are a number of instances in the Bible where God did stop human beings from reproducing, and if you look in the historical passages in the Old Testament, one was particularly when Abraham went down to Abimelech's kingdom, and it says that God had closed up all the wombs in Abimelech. In other words, he'd stopped the women from reproducing. So you do have to remember the God factor. We make no bones about this. You do have to put God in the equation, and it is very clear that he is the one in control of reproduction, of animal reproduction, and plant reproduction as well. So in the overall living ecology, which is a dynamic system, and he is in control of that as well. If anyone else would like to add to that.
I'll add a reference in there, Diane. Psalm. If you read through, if I remember correctly, Psalm 104, it very specifically states, when God sends forth his spirit, the animals multiply. When he withdraws his spirit, they fall to the ground and they die. Now, this is not the biology you learn about in school, but you'll find it's the way it actually works. So when God blessed the people of Israel, when Pharaoh was starving the men from high-rich protein, and our normal biology rule is cut the protein, you cut the reproductive rate of man and beast alike. So he was worried about the next election. There were too many Jews. They were going to vote him out. All sorts of things were his concern. So he starved the men, increased their work hours, cut their protein. And then it says, and the women continued to have babies, right? So God multiplied them in spite of the odds. Now, at the other extreme, you go all the way back to Genesis 2 and 3 and 4, where you read about Cain and Abel. Cain kills his brother Abel, and the Lord actually punishes Cain in a most remarkable way, because his first instruction to Adam and Eve was to till the earth, and Abel had done that. Adam and Eve were doing it despite the curse of thorns and thistles and weeds that were there already. But he said to Cain, now the earth, your brother's blood cries out to me. Now the earth will no longer yield to you. Now he could have got the best quality seeds, the highest quality fertilizer, and nothing would have worked for Cain, right? So biology, agriculture, biology, reproduction, biology, animals, and parenthood does not exist without the God factor. So good reminder, Diane, and you and I, can praise the Lord that he's involved in it, right? Because if he withdraws, then all of the thing simply collapses.
So it really doesn't come down to just the available resources, but understanding that fifth word of the Bible all comes down to that fourth word, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it is true that, resources can affect population rates. And you can see that when there are very, very sparse areas that become very quickly repopulated after catastrophes and so on and so forth. And that plays in, I think, better with things like after the flood and so on and so forth. But there's got to be a spiritual aspect to this as well. Also, remember, part of the curse for humans anyway, not so much animals, but part of the curse for humans, part of the curse that God specifically said to Eve was that her conception would increase. And so we can't just use the modern rates, if you like, of reproduction and apply that to a pre-fallen world, because there's been a very specific change. And so don't fall into the trap of the present is the key to the past, as we've said many, many times before. So,
all right, I'll add one more with a moral and spiritual overtone. When you look at Adam and Eve, the Lord told them to multiply and fill the earth. Now, if sin had never come in, and when we obeyed that commandment, and you have enough people to fill the earth by God's definition, guess what would have happened to their multiplication ability? It would have ceased. And I mean, in heaven, do we have kids? If we did they, whatever, but you can see that this is under God's control. And if sin had never been a problem on planet Earth, once we achieved total obedience to filling the earth, he would have pulled the plug. But there's another side of it as well. They were told to multiply after their own kind. Now, there's a principle here: multiply and fill the earth. Now, when you become Christians, when you become born again, we have the same commandment: multiply after your own kind, right? So can I encourage you that built into that first marriage was a spiritual principle of the gospel, which you would later on get: I'm going to make you are born again, right? Now, multiply and fill the earth after your own kind, and don't stop until you've filled the earth. Okay, so get out there, all you Christians, preach the gospel, preach it with all your heart until we fill the earth with the glory of the Lord.